So hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Asphalion's webinar. Are you ready? DADI go live this month. Before starting, just a couple of things to take into consideration about the webinar. It will last approximately 35 minutes. In case you have any questions, please submit them in the chat. If there is any time left, they will be answered at the end of the webinar. Otherwise, we will answer them in written after the webinar. We will also send you the presentation per email. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers today, Beatriz Goñi, Regulatory Affairs Director, and Cristina Valls, Senior Regulatory Affairs Officer. Beatriz holds a pharmacy degree and also an expert degree in quality for the pharma industry, as well as a PhD in pharmacology. She has over 10 years experience in regulatory affairs in the pharma industry. On the other hand, Cristina holds a degree in pharmacy and a master in clinical trials, monitorization, and medical affairs. She has over 12 years experience in the pharma industry and over 8 years in the regulatory affairs field. Okay, so in today's webinar, we will navigate through the latest updates on DADI scope and timelines, the changes from electronic application forms into DADI and data from PMS, as well as practical tips on how to work with DADI. So with all this, Beatriz will take it from here. Beatriz, please, when you are ready.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Lydia. Welcome, everybody, and thank you all for attending this webinar. As Lydia mentioned, we are here to talk about DADI. Are you ready for the go live? So let me just start with the presentation. So first of all, and for those of you who still don't know Asphalon, let me just give you a brief introduction of ourselves. We are a leading consultancy and solutions provider of the regulatory and scientific services. We have offices in Barcelona, Madrid, Munich, and London. Asphalon first started working in 2000, and since then we have been working in more than 5,000 projects for more than 1,000 clients. Which are the solutions that we provide our clients? We offer drug development consulting, medical and scientific writing, CMC, regulatory procedures, vigilance, submission support, data management consultancy, medical devices, as well as we participate in Horizon EU projects. Additionally, we provide solutions at all the stages of the development, from the preclinical to clinical development, registration, and also life cycle management. And why work with us? Well, we provide a global rate from all of our services. We receive high satisfaction rate from our clients. We provide one-stop shop end-to-end services with tailor-made solutions for high complex challenges. Digital mindset. We are very focused on the digitalization of our services. We are also very solid partners network. We do behave as extension of your work. We provide you with expertise, quality, commitment, and flexibility. So following Asphalon introduction, let me share with you the agenda for today's webinar. We will start with the latest updates on scope and timelines for DADI. Then we will talk about the differences between DADI and electronic application form. Then we will navigate through DADI and data from SPOR. And the last part of the webinar will be dedicated to show you a demo on the electronic application form portal and to provide some practical tips on how to work with DADI. So let's start with point number one, with the latest updates on scope and timelines. So first of all, what is DADI? DADI is an acronym which stands for Digital Application Dataset Integration. And what is DADI itself? Well, it's a web-based form that will provide a way of working for variations. At this first stage, only will affect human variations, and it will transform our way of working. Now we work with an electronic application form, and we will be working with an interactive web form. The second feature of DADI is that it will become a two-way exchange of information in a later stage. So at the beginning, PMS will be feeding DADI, but the goal of DADI project is that at some point, DADI will be feeding PMS, which is a very challenging process. The third feature of DADI is that it will allow us to use ISO IDMP data through SPOR. So DADI uses the control vocabulary provided by SPOR, which is the first approach for the ISO IDMP implementation. Also, it will allow us to work with automated data imports. What will be the output of DADI? Well, it would be a PDF, just as we are used now with the electronic application form. This web-based form will render a human-readable PDF output that should be included in the ECTD sequence as exactly as we do now with the electronic application form. Additionally to this PDF and embedded in the text, DADI will carry a fire message which is only readable to machines. It's not readable to human eyes. And what is FHIR? Well, FHIR stands for Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources, and it is a standard for healthcare data exchange. But as I mentioned before, it will not be readable by human eyes. So what are the current timelines for DADI? Well, initially, the scope and the timelines for DADI were different, but in July this year, the scope changed, and these are the current timelines for DADI. So the first step of the implementation of DADI has been a period of user acceptance testing with a restricted group of people. One of them is my colleague Cristina. So we are very lucky that Asphalion has been taking part in this UAT because we will have a very good insight of how DADI looks like and how we should work with DADI. So as I mentioned, this UET was scheduled for the beginning of September, but due to technical issues, it was delayed, and it finally took place between the 19th and the 30th of September. So it ended last Friday. And this user acceptance test has been very useful to detect any bugs or any problems with the data migration that will allow that the main milestone of the project, which is the go live in October, at the end of October, will go much smoothly. So this go live is expected to occur at the end of October, and it will affect only centralized procedures. This is one of the main changes from the initial scope of the project. So it will affect only human variations concerning CAPS procedures, centralized procedures. So the next important milestone of the project will be release number 2, who will be taking place in March 2023, and it will affect human variations not only for CAP procedures but also for non-CAP procedures. Before this second release of DADI, a second period of UAT using not only CAP data but also non-CAP data will take place at the end of this year, beginning next year. And it will allow the EMA to perform any changes or to amend any bugs that might be found during this UAT. So once the second release of DADI goes live in March 2023 for both CAPS and non-CAPS, but only for human variations, a transition period of 6 months will start, where we will be able to use both DADI and the current electronic application forms. So I would like to draw to your attention to the fact that if we start one procedure using DADI, we should finish the variation with DADI web-based form, and the same with the current electronic application form. Therefore, it's not allowed to mix both forms during the same procedure. This is something that we should take into account. So around Q2 2023, it is expected that a new release providing bug fixes is made public, made available. And finally, in September 2023, the use of DADI will become mandatory for human variations affecting caps and non-caps. And finally, a new release is expected at the end of next year with additional functionality and structured data support. So for the moment, DADI will only be allowed for human variations, but in the meantime, EMA is working on the development of web-based forms affecting veterinary variations and the rest of regulatory procedures such as initial marketing authorizations and renewals. So if we move to the second point of the agenda, let's see what are the changes between DADI and the current electronic application form. So the first difference is that the current electronic application form is an interactive PDF-based form, whereas DADI is a web-based form. The second difference, the second main difference, is that we do not need to register before using the current electronic application form. However, the use of DADI will require EMA registration. We'll see it later on in the webinar. The third difference is that the current electronic application form uses data from OMS and RMS, but also allows some manual input. However, DADI will not allow any manual input, and all data will come from SPOR. And the last difference is that the current electronic application form does not contain any fire message, whereas DADI does contain a fire message, which is only readable for machines. These are the difference, but there are many things that remain the same. For example, the current PDF output format of the form. The regulatory process itself for human variations will not be changing, and also and neither will the marketing authorizations applications will be changed when DADI comes available for that regulatory procedure. Additionally, the content of the application form in the submission package is the same. We will see later on the demo that all the fields that are currently present in the electronic application form are also present in the DADI web-based form, and both PDFs should be signed. So let's go a bit deeper into data that are feeding DADI. So data that will be feeding DADI comes from SPOR. SPOR is a group of 4 databases, one concerning substance, SMS and substance management services. The second one concerning product management system or PMS. The third one concerning organizations, organization management service, OMS. And the fourth concerning referentials management system or RMS. You may see that 3 of them are in green, which means that they are already working and available. And PMS is in blue because it is not working yet fully. And currently, the migration of data from XBMPD and CMS is taking place. So where does DADI get all the data from? Well, it gets the data from these 4 databases that we have been seeing before and that comprehend SPOR. So EMA is responsible for the maintenance of SMS and RMS that both are feeding DADI, as well as the maintenance of the database for organizations, OMS, in collaboration with industry. And regarding PMS, which is the database for product management system, both industry and EMA are responsible. Why? Because XCBMPD, which is an Article 57 database and that are responsibility of the EMA holders, are migrating from data from XCBMPD are migrating to PMS. And the same happens with the database of CMS for centralized procedure. So to give you just an insight of what fields of XCBMPD and SciMed are feeding PMS, let me show you some examples. For example, name, strength, dose form, active substance, MA number, MRP DCP number, authorization type, number of packages, and package size. So let's go to the last but not least, to the last point of the webinar, which is the practical tips on how to work with DADI. So the first step is to get access to the EAF portal. For that purpose, we need an IMA account, a user for IMA account. For those of you who do not still have this access, we strongly recommend you to create an email account because otherwise you won't be able to access the EAF portal. So if you go through this link, you will get to this web page where you should click here where it says create a new email account. Those of you who already have an email account can do not need to perform any additional step. And then we should move to the second step for the registration process, which is to request access for the organization you are working for or you'll be working on behalf. So it's important that you get access to the organization portfolio in PMS because otherwise you won't be able to work with DADI. So in order to request this access for this organization, you should click here where it says request access for organizations. There you should look for your org ID or the of the org ID that you will be working for and request one of these three roles. EAF applicant contributor, EAF applicant manager, and EAF applicant coordinator. You should choose one of them depending on the extent of the collaboration you will be performing for this organization. Bear in mind that contributor, the role of applicant contributor, hold very strict access to the file, to the portal, and whereas coordinator has the full access to all the features of DADI. And once you have conducted both steps, 1 and 2, you may access the EAF portal. As you may see here in this address, it still holds the words UAT. That means that EAF portal has not gone into production yet. And now I'll give the floor to my colleague Christina, who will lead us to the EAF portal.
Hi, thank you, Beatriz. Now in next slides, we are going to show you how DADI works. And in this slide, you can see how to go into the e-application form portal. This is the address only for UAT test, but we assume that the address for use in the future will be similar, but currently it's not available. And then you can go sign in order to start to create an application form. Next. Okay, here it's the first tab that you can see, and in this table, it's possible to show the previous e-application forms that you have been created with a minimum information. This information is application form ID, friendly name, application form type, reference holder, who has modified this application form and the date. And then if you want to create a new application form, you have to click here, create new application form. And then in next slides, you will see all the process in the different tabs that you have to be complete step by step. In the first one, it's the first one, and then currently it's only available variation from human, and then it's not option to put anything there, and then you have to click the holder and friendly name. The friendly name is you can add something in order to reference this e-application form.
Sorry, Christina, just for clarification purposes, the reference MA holder that you will find here is only the MA holder for those who you have requested access for. So that's why it's very important to request access for the MA holder that you will be working for. Otherwise, it will not be here and you will not be able to select it.
Exactly. And then at the beginning of the creation of the application form, it's possible to add a co-author. It means that 2, 3 persons of the same organization can work at the same time in its application form. It's possible to add a co-author at the beginning or at any time during the process. It means you can add a co-author later or at the end. But it's the option, and then you can select one person from your organization in order to edit the same application form. Next. Okay, and then start all the tabs that you have to complete. And as you will see, it's very similar, and the information is the same that we complete in the e-application form. And from our experience, it's recommended doing step by step in order to avoid issues, and always save and validate once you finish one tab in order, because sometimes we have some problems if we don't validate all the information. And in the first one, it's you have to select the product which will be affected by this variation, and then you have to click add product, and a list of the products for the holder which have been selected previously will appear, and then it's need to click the product and the pack sizes, which will be affected for this variation. And then next is the type of changes. And in type of changes, it's needed to add which kind of variation you are going to submit. And then, first of all, it's important to add a scope. And in add scope, there is the variation guidelines, and then it's need to select which variation is applicable for this application. And next slide, we can see that there is the list of all variation, and it is possible to search and filter and add the variation that you are going to submit. Next one. Okay, in this case, we are preparing an application form for a type 1B C1 variation. It's an example. Okay, then we filter and then select the variation here. And in next slide, you can see that, next slide. Okay, you can see that the variation is it's here included, variation type B. And in this slide, it's important to add if product information will be included in the sequences, which kind of product information, it's only package leaflet, and then the documents which will be with as a reference in the variation package. Next one.
And then, sorry, it's important. That's why we are highlighting the hand here to save, as Christina mentioned before, to save everything before you go ahead with the next step of the process to avoid any problem at the end.
Correct. And once you have saved, the option of validate, and always save and validate. And then once the tab has been saved and validated, you can see that a green tick on the left, that it means that this section has been complete and there are no issues. And then you can go to the next one, which in this case is procedural information. In this case, there are 3 parts: procedural information, name and address of the holder, and contact person. Procedural information and holder, there are has been included previously, so what it states, it's only needed to add the telephone and address of the holder. And then in the contact person, can go ahead. Okay, this is the procedural information, which is included what kind of variation is. Okay, but at this stage, it's not needed to do anything because you do it previously. And in the next one, contact person, it's important. And here you have to add the contact person from, in this case, is the European Union because it's only for centralized procedure, the name, telephone, and email and company. But for the holder, it's only needed to add the phone and the email contact. After that, it's important to save and validate. And then, as you will see, the information is complete. And then we will go to the next step, is propose changes. It's in this part, there are two sections. The first of all is scope and background, and the next one is present and proposed changes. We will be, and then in order to, in the next slide, you will see the present and propose. Sorry, the scope and background, and it's the same that we are doing for the current application form. You describe the change of the variation, but in this case it's easier because it's possible to add tables, pictures, so we consider it's easier than with the current application form. And the next one, this is the present and proposed table. It's the same. It's easier because you can add a table, pictures, and consider it's more friendly than the current application form. And then you have to add the present and proposed table. In this case, since it was a type 1B text to update text, manufacturers are not affected. Then we click the last sentence in order to, in case no message is done. But if there is a manufacturer change, holder, or organization, it's needed to complete and add, what it would add, complete the changes of the organization. For example, it's a change of the address, it's needed to include the current and the proposed situation um, with this table. I don't know if I'm clear enough.
Yes, let me just summarize. In summary, this is the same section as we are doing now with the electronic application form, right, Christina?
Correct.
So, well,
Yes, the
same.
difference is for manufacturing. For example, if there is a variation which there is a change in manufacturers, it's important to add the manufacturer that there is a list, no, and then you click the manufacturer affected for this change, and there is a pre-selected list, and then you can choose the one.
You can choose. And in fact, if you remember, one of the main difference between the electronic application form and DADI is that the manual input is only allowed in the electronic application form, as I said. But the truth is that there is one section, which is this one, with the present and proposed changes, that still allowed manual input. The goal of the EMA is to remove this manual input, but for the moment, for the time being, it allows us to write, to include any images, any pictures, or whatever we need. So this is not a change from the current electronic application form we are using. In fact, this section, as Christina mentioned, has been improved, and the quality of the pictures is much better in case you need to include it, and also allows us to modify the format and so on. So if we move to the next tab.
Yeah, then after present and proposed table, you have to add select the scope because, and then you select for which variation you are including these changes, and then select medicinal products for which are affected for this variation.
Sorry to insist, but I would like to highlight that only the medicinal products with the organization you are linked is the marketing authorization holder will appear here.
Correct.
So it's very important that your access is linked to the email holder, to the correct email holder you need access and you will be working for. Otherwise, the products will not be here.
Exactly. And then this is the last step. And in this case, it's you have to complete the annex documents, declaration of the applicant, proof of payment if needed, and signature. And we will see in the next slides.
So before going forward, Christina, this section is quite the same as the current electronic application form, right?
Exactly, it's the same. It's the same that the current electrician application form. We will see in the next slides. This is the screen, and it's the same. You have to select which product information is affected for the change, proof of payment, signature. It's possible to add additional signature or only main signature. In the last next slide, it's a declaration of the applicant. It's exactly the same that the current application form.
Mm-hmm.
And then when everything has been saved and validated, you can see that on the left, everything is green and with a green tick. And then it's time to finalize the application form. And then you
In
can
case
export in order to obtain the PDF, which will be included in the ECTD sequence.
if some of these sections is not in green, is not completed, we will not be allowed to go forward, right?
You can export if there is some section pending. It's possible to export as well.
But you will not be
but
able
you
to submit.
correctly, because you can export, but when you click export, appear a message informing, please take into account that there is invalidations or there are issues there are errors in this application form, so you have to complete correctly in order to submit to the authorities.
So we need to have all these sections in green
Com-
before getting a good export that can be included in the sequence, right?
exactly.
Okay.
Right. And then click export and download, and you can save the PDF in order to sync and include it in the ECT sequence. Next one. This is the application form which we have downloaded from the system, and then it has to be signature. Regarding signature, the details on the signature requirements will be available before go live, but at the moment there are no information. And once the application form is synced, then you can include it in the ECT sequence for the submission of the procedure.
Exactly as we do now with
Correctly.
EAF. So there is no
Exactly.
change here.
No,
And
it's the same.
as you may see, this is how the PDF looks like. And despite the fact that we are not seeing it, the fire message is embedded in the text. But to human eyes, this message cannot be seen. So we will be seeing a PDF just like we do now.
Exactly. Mhm.
So thank you, Christina, for this live demo of the portal. And we will be finishing with a few recommendations before the DADI goes live. One will be awareness. You need to create awareness in your organization. Maybe this webinar is the first step of the awareness you are creating in your organization. Definition, we need to define DADI processes within our own organizations. Check, it's very important to perform a data check with SPOR and XBMPD data, because as we have seen, the data from SPOR will be feeding DADI. Therefore, any mistake, any discrepancy here in SPOR will be migrated to DADI. And last but not least, review DADI requirements, especially the one regarding the accesses and the roles that should be requested before starting working with DADI. So that would be all from our side. And if you agree, let's look at the questions that are already in the chat. So the first question is regarding are we providing RIMS solution? Um, Sorry, I don't seem to understand the question. Maybe if somebody wants to clarify. Um, but there is no need to have a RIMS for the use of DADI. I don't know if that was the question. If we move to the other one, Ana Codert, hi. When there are different MA holders in a procedure, do you need to ask access for the other MA holders? Yes. We need to link our role with the MA holders that we will be working for. Otherwise, we will not be able to select the products. Next question. With regards to the signature, should we attach a signature as we do now with the current EAF? Exactly. As we mentioned here, the process for the signature of the PDF will remain the same. EMA has confirmed that more details will be made available before go live, but there is, for the moment, there is no change, there is no expected change on the way that we currently sign our application forms. Next question, will it be all annexes included in DADI, Annex 5.1 till Annex 5.22? I guess you mean with this, the list of annex that we, sorry, here? Maybe, Cristina, you could
No,
answer
it
this
will,
one.
Annex 5.1 will be added in the proof of payment, as I think it's similar than it works now in the e-application form. You have to add the information required for any case. And Annex 522, you will select that you are including this annex, and probably is in this annex attachment. No, in the when you select type of changes in the previous slide, there is an option when it's mentioned documentation for this variation, and in this case, it's here when you have to include. I think it's later, next slide. Here, in documentation, you can include which documents are you included for this change.
And additionally, regarding the how to submit the annexes, we should
With a
not
second.
be attaching them to the PDF, because otherwise we will be losing the fire message. So it would be the PDF form and then the rest of the annexes. But we do not, we should not compile, because we will lose the fire message. Next question. As we know, implementation date is very important in case of type 1A and 1A in variation. Please give few information to include DADI. Cristina, do you want to comment on this?
When it is a variation 1A, the system, you have to include the implementation date in DADI. It's similar that in the current application form. At this, in this slide, it's required, and the system required to add an implementation date. So you include the date in DADI. It's I think it's the same that with the current e-application form.
Yeah, there is no change on that requirement.
No.
And the next question is from Alejandra Ramos. Will it still be possible to provide present and proposed table in a separate PDF as an annex to electronic application form, or would it be mandatory to fulfill present proposed table in the portal?
We don't know, but probably we consider it's the same that with the current e-application form, because in some authorities permit to add the present and proposed as an annex, but there are others that prefer to include all information in the e-application form. So we consider that it's the same that we do currently with the e-application form.
Mhm.
But we consider that with DADI, it's easier to add tables in the present and propose because the system works better than the e-application form currently.
So maybe there is no need to attach a PDF for the track changes because this system allows to stick the table much better than the current electronic application form. But anyhow, we do not foresee any constraints, Alejandra. If you still need to attach the present and proposed table in a separate PDF for an agency that you already know will allow it, we do not foresee any problem.
Mhm.
You're welcome. So this was the last question that we had in the chat. So if you need to more support on DADI, or if you have additional questions, you can reach out to us at any time at the address info@asphalion.com, as Lydia has kindly written in the chat. And thank you very much to all of the attendees for the interest in DADI, and we will see you soon.
So it's a wrap. Thank you very much,
Bye.
Beatriz and Cristina. Thank you to all the attendees, and we will send the presentation shortly. Have a nice afternoon ahead. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.